Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. Today we're going to take a look at John's collection, and John's collection is a story and how a collection started and then went in different directions. And the thing I like about John's collection is that he does a lot of things. He's sort of like John. It's an exploration of a number of different types of watches. Now, the first watch that John considered to be a luxury watch was this Omega Seamaster, and it's got a coaxial caliber 2500 in it. And it's just a good, solid sports watch. And you can see it's got a crown at 10 o'clock, and it's got a nice steel brace. Just a sort of a nice, solid watch to start looking at this kind of watch with. Now, from there, the next one he got. Now, this was his first. He called this first chronometer, and it was chronometer quality. And I think pretty sure the Omega may have been also. But anyway, this was, John considered this to be a relatively inexpensive, a Mido. It's called a Great Wall. I love the name. I don't know why, but I do. And it's a very clear watch. I mean, you can glance at that very quickly, get the time, and be on your way. But as you probably know, is that for a Swiss-made watch to have chronometer on it, it has to be COSC certified as such. So, except for F.P. Journe, he didn't pay attention to any of the rules. But he would love to challenge him to test his watches. Okay, moving right along. Now, the next one is one I like a lot. It's a Tissot T-Sport Seastar 1000. It's a nice, clear little watch. It's not terribly expensive. It runs on an ETA movement, but it's a good sort of beater watch, and I like the looks of it. It's a nice little watch. The Ball Engineer Hydrocarbon Deep Quest. Now, you may notice there's a bit of a nautical theme to some of these. And here is another one with a metal bracelet, and it's sort of one of these general knock-around sports watches. Okay, they also have ETA movement. Now, this next one is a Tudor North Star, and I think that the North Star was the very first Tudor, at least modern Tudors, that had their own movement in it. And it's a simple watch. It's I think this one won a Grand Prix award a few years ago, and it's a nice watch. Now, I sort of jumped ahead and it's also COSC certified. I jumped ahead a bit for the Panerai PAM 268 Radomir with 8 days. Now, so this is another interesting watch for a weekly ticker on there, and it's got the date and small seconds, and then down below you can see it has the power reserve indicator on it, and like the Radomir Panerai, great lume on it. All right, so now going back in order. Now here we got the Zenith Captain Windsor annual calendar. This is a great watch with a El Primero movement in it. Beautiful looking watch, and this is one of those watches that's really comes in under the radar. And the good thing about that for collectors, it's not that expensive. I mean, comparatively for this level of horology, it's quite nice, and the thing that I like the best about this, well, I like the dial a lot, but you flip it over and you can really see a lot of the movement. And what you see is, good, strong horology in there. All right. Now, this next to the Seiko Astron GPS, this is runs on solar power, and it's sort of a dual thing with this solar, plus there's a battery in there. So it's a quartz watch. But boy, the stuff you can pile on a quartz watch. It looks like a world timer around, if you look on the bezel there, you can see all of these little abbreviations. Those are airport abbreviations. And so rather than having the sort of the name of the city, they have different airports. Like LAX is one. Now they have NYC, and I know they have JFK and they have LaGuardia. I'm not sure though if actually NYC is one of them. But you get the idea. It's sort of one of those all the things that you can do watch with a quartz, and a quartz you can just do all kinds of stuff with. Now John also sent me this picture of with his collection of a Grand Seiko with a spring drive. He didn't really say anything about it, and it's Grand Seikos are sort of they're the Japanese luxury watches. On the one hand, I like them a lot because they're very well engineered, but sort of like a lot of the mass-produced things, it is mass-produced. So, but that's okay. Recently, I'd done a video on some of the newer, younger watchmakers. And the Japanese have some guys in there who do the whole thing by hand. They're just amazing. And so maybe that's shouldn't be as down on Grand Seiko because they're really great watches. This next one, the Glashütte Original Sport Evolution Impact Panorama Date, it reminds me of a cross between sort of an elegant sports watch and a G-Shock. So you have two things coming together. The band on this thing with the black and white checks and the whole watch itself looks like a wonderfully fun watch, and it's one I hadn't seen before. I'm pretty familiar with the Glashütte original line of watches, the Panos and so forth. But this one was new to me, and I really enjoyed it, and I think it's a heck of a selection for John. This one is another favorite of mine, and this is the Parmigiani Colpa XL Hebdo Madari. The reason I like this, it's one of the few watches that Parmigiani makes that is a manual wind, and this is an 8-day manual wind, and it was designed by Michel Parmigiani, and it's just a cool watch. This is, if you can look at flip it over, you look at the back, and you can look at the finishing and all of the details that go into this watch. I just love this particular model. John said he didn't care for the hands. They look stubby. Story about the hands is that Parmigiani is a big fan of what's called the golden mean or the golden ratio. And so the length of the big hand is like 1.6 times the hour hand. And so you have these different sizes. And the stubbiness of them is really related to the shape of the watch, the shape of the dial, and the hour hand is trying to go underneath the retrograde power reserve indicator up at 12 o'clock. And then you have that great big small seconds, and then right in the middle of that you have the very unique Parmigiani calendar, which I happen to like. Speaking of which, I happen to have on my Kalpa, and it's got that same kind of, you can see 3 days, the day before, the day after, and the day. on that. So this is a cool watch. Very expensive watch. Didn't hold its price. John got a fabulous price on it for a great watch. Now, the final watch that we're going to look at is a Hublot Classic Fusion Black Magic. A lot of people just, they have sort of this automatic. They don't like Hublot. They hate them. Now, there are some models probably of every watch that's ever been made, or every watch company I don't like either. But on this one, what I found out, a friend of mine and I were coming out of Tiffany's one day, and we had bought we had all these blue bags. We'd gotten gifts for our wives, bribes. And so we come out, and we turn right coming out of Tiffany's, and there's a Hublot store. And there was this guy out there licking his chops for people who are interested in it. So here we are with all these Tiffany bags, and so he unlocked it and hey, come on in, look around. And I went in there, and I was really surprised by the number of Hublot that were not these crazy ones that I don't particularly care for. But they have some really nice, clean, clear ones. And boy, I tell you, this one I really like. And so when I saw this in John's collection, I said, this is kind of thing. And of course, the lesson in there is that, look, there are good and bad watches probably in every watch manufacturer's collection. And this particular one, John was saying, I saw one and it was on ran on an ETA, and I didn't feel like spending the kind of money because it didn't have its own movement. And then they put a Hublot manufactured movement in there. And boy, and looking at that, that's a very cool movement. Not only is it a cool movement, it's a very cool display of a movement. Now, it's probably 4 hertz, 28,800. So you're not looking at the great kind of thinking in the movement, but that's okay. I mean, you still have an interesting movement as opposed to one that's sort of an off-the-shelf from wherever. Okay, well, listen, I want to thank John for sending me the images of all of his watches, the stories that he had with him, and there's always more stories in that, but you can get a picture. Here's a guy who isn't afraid to get what he wants. Some people are, I should get this, or I should get that. Oh, what's wrong with me? How come I didn't buy a Patek Philippe and instead I got something like I'd get? It was, what was my last one is Lang & Hein. I could sit down and tell you why, but that's, I like the idea to try different things. I mean, you sort of mix up your collection and have some interesting watches in it. And I think John has done this quite well. So anyway, but listen, what do you add to a collection like this? It's a very eclectic collection. The eclectic collection. Boy, that'll be hard to say, but I think it sort of describes it. But it describes it a well chosen one with neat watches and fun watches to have. So anyway, as always, I'd really like to hear your comments, any suggestions that you have. And if you like, you can subscribe. All right, so this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection, and hope to see you next week.